In the last lesson, we familiarized ourselves with text in After Effects, and this is the lesson 2 of this series where we're going to learn how to use the text animator, and in the process, we will animate a colorful flicker text effect, then a title text, and then a 3D text, all by using the text animator from scratch. And don't miss out on the text animation presets pack where you will get 20 plus unique text animation ready for quick application from the effects and presets panel. And as always, you can get the open file of this video from the link in the description. So that being said, without any further delay, let's dive right into it. Okay, we're in After Effects and let's start with creating a text layer. First, select the text tool and click anywhere in the composition window and type in the text. I'm going to type in creative. Now center the anchor point. The shortcut key is Ctrl plus Alt plus Home. Now align this text layer with the composition window. For that we can take the help of the align panel. First align horizontally and then vertically. Now open the options for this layer. We have the transform property of the layer that we have for any other layer in After Effects, and next we have the text layer. And if we move the cursor horizontally, you can see a button with Animate. If you click on it, here we get all the options for text animators. So these are the options for transform, and here we have few extra other options that we can use to add few more effects to the text animator. So to add a text animator, we can click on any of these options. Now to add transform options, we have an option called all transform properties. If we click on it, it's going to add all these properties together. And we can even add these properties individually as well. So right now we are only going to add the opacity property. So click on it and the opacity property is added under Animator 1. Now let's decrease the opacity. From here you can see the opacity is decreasing. I'm going to keep it 0. Now if you move the playhead, nothing is going to happen. So open the range selector 1, and from here if we increase the start, you can see the text is animating. And if we move the text from the end from 100% to 0%, you can see the text is animating from the end. So basically from the start you can animate the text from the start, and from the end you can animate the text from the end. Okay, let's add a keyframe on the start property, and now let's jump on to next around 2 seconds. So we are in 30 fps, so let's jump on to around next 70 frames and give the start from 0 to 100%. And if we preview, you can see the text is animating in. And from the offset, you can offset the start and the end position of the text layer. Okay, now let's open the advanced property. Inside advanced, you get few more options. So here we have one option called smoothness. If we give the smoothness completely 0, it's going to animate a bit mechanically. And right now we have some typing effect. At the bottom of these advanced options, we have randomize order. We're going to turn it on. And inside randomize order, we have another option called random seed. We're going to animate this property. So move the playhead at the start and let's add a keyframe at the start. Let's jump on to the next keyframe and we will increase the random seed to 40. Now if we preview the animation, you get this flicker effect. Okay, now we can duplicate this layer 3 more times and select all these 4 layers and turn on the stroke. Now select the bottom layer and I'm going to turn off the fill color for this one and change the stroke color to around sky blue. For the third layer, let's change the color to red. For the second layer, we can change it to yellow, the stroke as well. And for the first layer, we can keep everything white and just offset each of this layer by 4 frames. And finally, let's add an adjustment layer and apply an effect called glow with a threshold of 70%. And here we have a colorful flicker effect. Okay, now it's time to animate title text with text animators. So let's start with adding a text layer. Again, select the text tool and click on the composition window and type in the text. And let's decrease the text size and use the align panel to align it with the composition window and just center the anchor point. So the shortcut key is Ctrl plus Alt plus Home. Also, I would like to cancel the stroke for this text layer, and now let's add another text layer. So for that we can duplicate this layer one more time and just reposition it and place it below this layer, and let's change the text and just rescale and reposition it. And lastly, just add another rectangle shape below the title. For this one, I would like to keep the fill and cancel the stroke and just align it with the text layer as well as the composition window. Okay, now let's turn off the visibility of these two layers and let's start with animating the first text. Open the layer properties and we're going to add an animator. So first, we're going to add a position and then we will also add opacity and scale. So there are two ways to add it. If you again click on animate and try to add it, it's going to add on a separate animator. But I want to add the other two properties inside this animator one. For that, you have to click on this add button. Now, from here you can add more properties like scale and opacity. Now let's change the Y position to 90, scale to about 50 and give the opacity 0%. Add a keyframe on the start inside range selector. Let's jump on to next 40 frame and we're in 30 fps and let's animate the start from 0 to 100%. Easy is the keyframe and move on to the motion graph editor and we're going to work with the speed graph this time. So add an ease at the end, a little bit at the start as well. And now we will add another property in a separate animator. So for that, we have to click on this animate and the property we're going to add is tracking. Click on it and it's added in a separate animator. Now we are going to animate the tracking amount. So we're going to start it from somewhere around here. Let's add a keyframe over here till around 2 seconds. So somewhere around here and give the tracking amount to about 80 or 85. Okay, 85 is just too much. Let's decrease it a little bit. And at the start, we're going to change the tracking amount to negative. So let's give it around minus 20 or something. Okay, now we're going to copy the motion graph editor from these two pair of keyframes. For that, we're going to use a plugin called EaseCopy. So select the keyframes, click on the copy button in the copy section, select these two pair of keyframes, and then go to the paste section and click on Ease. Now let's preview the animation. Now we're going to duplicate this text layer one more time and in this layer, let's open the text animator. Inside animator 1, we're just going to delete the position and scale. And for the first layer, let's change the color of this layer. So we're just going to match the color with the shape. So let's copy the color code and select this text layer and paste it here in the fill. Press U to open the properties with keyframes and just offset the keyframes of the start by about 8 frame. And here we have it. And now we will animate the second text. So turn on the visibility and let's select this text layer and use the shape layer as an alpha matte. And just turn on the visibility of the shape layer. So we're going to animate the scale property of this shape from around a second. So let's add a keyframe on scale and let's jump on to next around 40 frame and add a keyframe. At the start, we're just going to scale it down horizontally. So give it 0. Let's select these keyframes and just paste the motion graph from the other keyframes to match the motion from the first text layer. Now we will open the position property of this text layer, add a keyframe, and let's jump on to the next keyframe and let's add a keyframe. And at the start, we're just going to move it up. Again, select this two pair of keyframes and paste the motion graph editor or paste the ease. And just offset these keyframes by a few frames. And this is how it looks. And to make the overall text animation look more dynamic, we can duplicate this second text layer 4 more times. And now select all these 4 text layer and put it below and just change the layer color so that we don't get confused. Now for this text layers, we're going to turn on the stroke and cancel the fill. And for the stroke, we're just going to keep it around 4 and apply an effect called Gaussian blur with a blur value of around 8. And let's decrease the opacity as well to about 60. And now we can just reposition these text layers and readjust the scale to some different location to give it an abstract look. And this is how it finally turns out. And now let's animate 3D text with text animators. So select the text layer again and click on the composition window to add the text layer and type in the text. Center the anchor point and use the align panel to align it with the composition window. Now open the layer properties, click on animate. The very first option is enable per character 3D. If we click on it, now each of these characters are converted into 3D. So if we change the renderer to Cinema 4D, we even get the geometric options. So from the extrusion depth, we can add some 3D depth to these characters. But we're not going to do that. We're going to keep the overall animation simple and minimalistic. So let's change the renderer to classic 3D. Now let's add an animator position, and inside the animator one, I'm going to add another animator rotation. Now inside more options, we're going to change grouping alignment. So we are just going to move the Y position of it and put these dots you see over here just at the center. By default, it is at the bottom of the layer. Now, once we move this at the center, if we rotate it, it's going to rotate from this point. Now we are going to give the initial offset of position and X rotation. For that, we will add two rulers. So Ctrl plus R is the shortcut key to activate rulers. We will add one ruler at the top, one at the bottom. Now we will change the X rotation such that it disappears completely. At the same time, we're going to move it in the Y axis. So let's adjust the X rotation and the Y position such that it completely disappears. Okay, now we will add a keyframe on the start inside the range selector, and let's jump on to next around 25 frame and animate the start from 0 to 100%. Easy is the keyframe, and let's move on to the motion graph editor again. We will work with the speed graph editor, add a edge at the start and the end. Okay, now we will add a keyframe on the group alignment, position and the X rotation on the 25th frame. And let's add a pause of few frames. So let's keep it around 9 frame. So let's jump on to next 9 frame. Now we have to animate it out from the bottom, following the same style of animation. So for that, first we have to change the position of this group alignment so we can give it completely 0. For the X rotation, we're going to change the negative to positive. And now we have to adjust the Y position such that it completely disappears from the bottom of the layer. So slightly decrease the end layer a little bit. And now we can adjust the position. Okay, now we are going to animate the end property. So let's start the end from 100%. Let's add a keyframe. Now let's jump on to next 25th frame and give the end 0%. Now we can copy the motion graph editor from these two pair of keyframes. Click on copy from the is copies. Now select these two pair of keyframes and now click on is. And from here, after the animation out, we can simply split the layer and delete the rest of the layer. And in the similar way, you can animate the other words. To change the direction of the letters animating in and animating out, you just have to adjust the values of start and end under the range selector. And now we're going to make this animation look even more dynamic. So let's start with adding an adjustment layer, then apply transform. Let's add a keyframe on skew and rotation at the first frame. Now let's place the playhead somewhere around here and give the skew value to around -15. And let's add some rotation in the negative direction. At the start, I want to give the skew around 2. Now, somewhere around here, we're going to give the skew +15 and the rotation maybe around 12. And around here, we can copy and paste this keyframe. And at the end, we're just going to continue the animation a little bit. So easy is the keyframe. Now jump onto the motion graph editor. This time, we will use the value graph. And we are just going to select all the keyframes and pull the Bezier handles to add some hard edges. And at these positions, we are not going to keep the Bezier handles completely flat. First, let's convert it into an auto Bezier and slightly tilt it so that we can get a little movement in this area as well. Similarly for this one and for this one as well. And let's follow the same process for the rotation keyframes. And this is how it finally turns out. Alright, so that is it for this video, and you can get the text animation presets pack where you will get 20 plus unique text animation which you can directly apply from the effects and presets panel. So if you like the video, then make sure to hit the like button. If you have any doubt regarding the techniques, then make sure to comment down below. I would be happy to help you out, and if you're here for the first time, then make sure to subscribe the channel and hit the bell notification button to stay notified for all the future updates. Until then, goodbye.